Good morning and welcome to Study AQ, my dear friends. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are doing good. Today is 16th March 2020. Day is Monday. I'm sure you all have enjoyed your weekend. On our table, we have a very interesting, very important article, Reforming Power to Serve People. This article is important for your mains examination, for your interview. We are going to analyze it in detail. Then we are going to talk about Delhi riots and its impact on kids. Way to go. This one is about Jammu and Kashmir politics. Needless appeal. It's about Uttar Pradesh government versus Allahabad High Court. It's about this naming and shaming those people, those rioters who took part in. When I say rioters, I'm specifically talking about those people who indulged in violence. Right? Conducting a protest is a right. Right? Everyone can protest, but there is a way of doing it, right? Violence is not legit and it's not legal. So here, naming and shaming is pertaining to those people who were destroying public properties and things like that. And then we have a dam of contention in Africa, very important one from your prelims point of view. I'm going to ask you a question based on this particular topic, but before that, dear friends, I would like to introduce all of you to our pen drive and tablet courses which are available for various different competitive exams. They are designed by best faculties of our country. They are our paid premium courses, and with the help of our pen drive and tablet courses, there are thousands of students out there. They have cracked various different competitive exams. You can purchase them from studyiq.com. If you have any further question, queries, doubts regarding it, feel free and give us a call on the numbers that you can see on your screen. To download the PDF of today's lecture, dear friends, join my Telegram channel. And to get in touch with me, you can send me messages on FB. Please make sure that you share this lecture with other students. Hit the like button if you have learned something from today's discussion. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So let's start our discussion with Mahatma Gandhi's quote. Mahatma Gandhi ji once said that democracy is an impossible thing until power is shared by all. Even a laborer who makes it possible for you to earn your living will have his share in self-government. Now, on paper, when I say on paper, I mean to say as far as our constitution is concerned, everyone is equal. That's a good thing. But in reality, things are different. A person who is having a huge amount of wealth can easily exercise. He or she would be able to exercise more rights than a person who is not having that much amount of wealth. I'll give you one example, right? Just imagine a person who is driving a very expensive car on the road, and for whatever reason, right, I'm not saying who is in fault, but just imagine a scenario where there is a small tiny accident between this big expensive luxurious car and a person who is riding a motorcycle. Now just imagine the person who is inside that car, the owner. He is a very rude person, and he comes out from his car and he slaps the person who is riding that motorcycle, and he even threatens him to beat him further and things like that. What will happen further? Do you think that if that person will go to that rider, that motorcycle rider, if he goes to police station, do you think that police will take an action? Of course, there are rules and regulations. Like there are few things that we need to change with our rules as well. But in most cases, right, and being very practical here, right, in most cases, even if a police officer will take action, that person, that wealthy person will throw some money. He will give some money to, maybe he will give some money or some other favors to the top police officers. And then you know how it works in our country, that SHO, that person will get a phone call from his or her senior and will get instructions that should not do anything about it, and this is how it works. So this is just one example. I'm not saying that all the time this will happen, but logically speaking, based on our observation and experience, this is the thing that will happen most of the time in our country, and this is a pure discrimination. This is just one example. There are so many various different forms of discrimination that we find, right? If you know someone at, let's say, hospital, or if you know someone at PSB or public sector bank, right? If you have good connections, then you will see that a person will come with a big bag and he will give money directly to the manager and his staff will count the money and they will deposit the money. That person will not stand in a queue because he is big shot or he's dealing with huge amount of money. So this is also a sort of discrimination if you look at it from this point. So small things, right, they matter. So basically this article is not about this sort of experiences, but this article is based on these things, right? And that's what Mahatma Gandhi ji was trying to tell. Like when even if it doesn't matter, as far as you are Indian citizen, you are equal. And in real life as well, not just on paper, in real life as well, if we have this sort of powers, if we can see this sort of India, then we can say that yes, we are genuinely a democratic and a mature democracy. We are living in a democratic country which is very mature, but things are totally different in our country, isn't it? And why these sort of things are happening in our country? One of the main reason is this filthy politics that we find, right? In India, we have a system where people we know it very well. Like politicians, they come out with big promises when they are campaigning, and once they get selected, their parties get selected, right, or elected to be precise. Their behavior will change when they are appealing. When they are coming to us to grab votes, they will hang out with poor people. But when that poor people is trying to meet that person who is a chief minister or prime minister or maybe any other sort of minister or your MLA or MP, you have to go through so many protocols and things, isn't it? So this is, you can say, two sides of the coin. And India needs a system that throws up political parties and politicians whose primary goal is public service, not power. Let's remember this. I'll throw some examples. Right, Delhi Assembly election, hate speeches. Then Madhya Pradesh at present. You know how things are going on. Defection. Devendra Fadnavis, this election of this Maharashtra. Devendra Fadnavis took an oath for a day, and then he was replaced by a new chief minister, Uddhav Thackeray. So all these things, right, they indicate that it's all about grabbing or capturing power. And the reason why this politicians and political parties are running after power is because power brings money, privileges, and control of treasury. Political parties in power are supposed to deliver good governance and serve the public, but usually power becomes an end to itself. That's the only thing that they are after. This is their high. This is their drug, you can say, right? It's a sort of thing that this is their lust. Power. They get everything. They get famous, and there are so many things. And the problem is once they get elected. I'm not talking about any particular political. I'm not talking about central government or BJP alone. I'm not talking about Congress. I'm not talking about AAP. I'm talking about every political party in our country, right? As far as my knowledge is concerned, my information is concerned, I don't know the name of a single political party that I can say that is 100% democratic, right? Internal politics of a party is also that much dirty, based on caste and money. I have seen a friend of mine is in politics, right? But he's not that wealthy person. He's struggling. He's doing it. He's not doing that well as far as money is concerned. But that person is a very talented man, and he's struggling. And I have seen some examples where in his party, right, the party with which he is associated, that party has promoted a person to a higher level because that person was able to sponsor the weekly meetings and all those things, transportation and other things. He used to provide his cars and other things, food and everything was provided by this person because he has wealth. He's not that much talented as far as this politics is concerned, but he knows he has money. So chances are, money is a sort of power that that person can exercise. So freebies, right? What they do is they provide these political parties. When I say political parties, I mean to say that governments, right? This is a sort of trend that they will give you freebies. They will give you free cycles and free laptops and so many things, tablets and other things. And this money that they are, this freebies that they are providing, is coming from exchequers money, right? It's governments or nations' wealth that they are using for giving freebies, and with the help of these freebies, they are the ones who are getting all those publicity and attraction. There are two factors that strengthen the growing deterioration in the quality of campaigns. The first one is criminalization of politics. We know that 43%, I have figures as well here. Let me show you. Here we go. 43% of MPs have criminal cases against them. How can we expect this sort of people? I'm not saying all 43% are criminals. Some of them may be struggling with false cases as well. But there are MPs, right? They are they are involved in some serious crimes. So how can we expect them to behave democratically? Then there is widespread use of social media. If you observe very neatly, then you will find the bad behavior of these politicians, and many a times political parties, when it comes to, if a person from from this enemy party or this rival party, if they speak something wrong, then this highest level of political party will condemn it. But when their own politicians are doing something wrong or speaking or giving hate speeches, then that party will remain mum. So who is elected or which party wins does not seem to matter any longer. In this game, those with money and ability to engineer defection can always come to power. So see, if you have money, if you are Gundaraj, and if you have this defection, if you can engineer a defection, then you can come to power. Two factors contribute to this open use of money. First one is lack of transparency in political funding. Black money. Bringing back black money and issue of black money. You will find roots of this black money issue with political parties funding. You have this nexus, right? There is a nexus going on. There are political parties and they take, and this is something that people are also doing, because people feel like these big parties, these big politicians, they are enjoying their life by using this black money. And a person who is working so hard, he is paying his or her tax and everything, then why he or she should contribute all the money, or why he should pay right amount of tax, right? If people who are enjoying this money are not doing right things. And this is one of the main reason why we have this bad culture. Of course, this culture is not good for our country. Like, everyone should pay right amount of tax, but this will not happen until these politicians and political parties, if they will not stop generating black money, then common people will do the same thing. And this is not good for country. Electoral bonds have made it even more difficult to trace the source of funds of political parties. And the second is law and order. Police, right? They have to, because directly, if you see the whole organization setup, Home Minister of your state or union home minister is the one who will control police and other forces. So if your commissioner, if a commissioner or maybe your SHO or your IPS officer, means he or she will have to take orders from political bosses, and if they don't do it, then they will be transferred. And it looks like, okay, it doesn't matter transfer, but when you have kids, when you have small kids, when you are just settled somewhere, and when you see frequent transfer, it affects your family. And when it affects you in this way, when someone, let's say your grandparents, or if your parent, one of your parent is not doing that well, and if his or her treatment is going on in a particular city, and then you are transferred, this will create huge amount of pain. And so these are the issues. So these political parties, they know how to exploit all these things. A corporate scamster is arrested and is named and shamed, but we don't find this sort of things during this massive or mass defection movements. This defection thing is going on nowadays. There is a fashion as well that MLAs will be locked in a resort or some other places. Their phones and everything will be taken, because parties, they fear that if they are allowed to get in touch with other parties, these other parties will throw huge amount of money and they will buy their MLAs. So it's more like a product, a business. These people are representing us, and can you imagine they are so much vulnerable to this money, or I would say this defection, that they have to be locked somewhere. And these are the people that we consider they are powerful. Can you imagine the society that we are living in? These are the questions you should think about. And good governance needs democracy. But today, hardly any political party in India is internally democratic. And as I told you, the root cause of the problem is the goal of political parties. Without the goal of political party is to capture power, to capture power without adequate transparency and accountability. And all governments, whether central or state, are in financial difficulty at present. If you see, IMF is saying that the fiscal deficit of India is somewhere around 7.5% of its GDP. 25% of central government's budget is spent on paying interest on money borrowed by the government. State government finances are in worse condition. And then we have this huge problem of NBFCs and banks and other. They are also struggling with NPAs and other things. So we need to check the use of muscle and money. It is the people who we can do this change, but just by doing voting, it's not going to change, because we don't have that clean options available. And so big reforms are required, and we cannot expect political parties to bring out this big reforms. And the reason I'm saying we cannot expect is because when it comes to reforming the system, they have the powers, right? Those people who are sitting there in our Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, our MPs, they have the powers to, or our MLAs, they have the powers to change the system. But if you go through the past of these reforms, you will find that I still remember when RTI was being discussed, or this topic was being discussed, that political parties should come under RTI. At that point of time, all parties, BJP, Congress, then you have this Mamta Banerjee's party and other politicians, all of them, normally you find them fighting with each other, right? But when it comes to this question, like that political parties should become or should come under the ambit of RTI, at that point of time they were all on the same page. They said that no, so it's very tricky. These politicians are, we think they are not, but they are very, very smart. And if we take a stand, if we change our choice, I think then only we can change the system. Because if we change our demand, if we reject this sort of politics, then these people will have no option, right? So think about it. Very important for your mains examination, for your essay writing, for your GS paper, as well as for your interview. Now we are going to talk about the second topic. On your screen you can see this building, right? As you can see, this building is not, in fact it is in a very appalling situation or condition. And this is a school of Delhi. It was looted, it was burned down by these rioters, and it's very sad, right, to see this sort of thing. Now, this article is talking about when every line in the book is violated. And can you imagine the situation of those teachers who have to explain to these young kids like what happened with their schools, right? Of course, the kids, naturally, they are very curious, so they are going to ask awkward questions. When I say awkward, I mean to say that we feel it is awkward. For kids, it's a very normal question, because they are still clean, right? They don't have this hate, they don't have this discrimination in them. For kids, for small kids, the world is, they are truly democratic, right? They don't care about religion, caste, color, or anything. Even if you are dirty or not, it doesn't matter. For kids, the world is neutral. They enjoy. But when we reach a certain age, what happens is this surrounding world will throw their filth, their fears, their discrimination, all those things on us. And anyway, coming back to this particular moving ahead. Of course, we are in this topic, but the thing is, it's going to be very difficult for teachers to explain what happened with their schools. And a violent riot is normally seen as a breakdown of law and order. Regular students, you would remember this thing, right? I'm sure, means I clearly remember. Not my words are not the same, but I told you this thing a few days ago when we were talking about this this violence, Delhi riots. I told you that this psychological scar is going to stay with these kids throughout their life. And this article is based on that thing only. That this damage that these riots have done is going to stay with these kids forever. And when you find this sort of thing, when like riots is basically an outcome of weakening of a state's moral authority and public's trust in it, isn't it? People's trust is people basically don't trust their government, and government is not strong enough to solve your problems, and that's the only reason why you find this sort of high emotions on the streets. Now, during this Delhi riots, private schools was set on fire, and its property was looted, which is very sad thing. And every core value of education is injured by this sort of violence. Like normally we read, inequality. What is inequality and how to overcome it? What is our constitution and geography? And there are so many moral education and so many good things that we discuss with our kids in school and in our home environment, domestic environment. But this sort of riots, right? They destroy all our belief system. They destroy our way of living, and then it will create this confusion in the mind of kids, like what our parents are telling us, what our teachers are telling us, whether that is right or wrong. In this article, we find this example of this mythological character called Sisyphus. Sisyphus was a person from Greece, basically, and this is a mythological character. Like he was a king, and his job was he was basically supposed to, to take this big stone to the very peak of this mountain. But when he reaches somewhere here, this stone, he slips from his hand, and then it goes back right at the bottom of this mountain. And this sort of things happens with these riots, when all our studies, all our efforts to take our whole society to a peak of humanity, it comes down right at the bottom when this sort of violence takes place. And it's very ironical as well that on one side we saw this Melania Trump. She was with these kids. She was there to educate herself about this happiness curriculum. And in the same city, on the same day, in a different part of that city, riots were going on and schools were being looted. So that's a very sad thing. So this article is all about this thing. And now let's move on to next one, way to go ahead. It's about Farooq Abdullah's release. He's released after 7 months, and that's a good sign. Hopefully, 2 more former chief ministers are detained. So hopefully they will be, they will be released as well, and political possibilities in the troubled region. We can see a ray of hope in this release of Farooq Abdullah. It is also said that back channels were quite active between him and central government. So when he was in detention at that point of time, central government and his team, they were interacting with each other, and they were trying to solve the situation. Now, Prime Minister Modi has assured a delegation of a newly formed Apni party that PM would work towards the restoration of statehood for Jammu and Kashmir. At present, J&K is a union territory. But of course, the Prime Minister also explained this thing when he gave this speech. And after this J&K was declared, when it was declared this union territory, a few days after that, PM Modi came out with his speech, and he said that it's not going to be union territory forever. Government will create an environment. When we'll get that environment, it will be restored to a state again. So there is a considerable trust deficit between central government and people of Jammu and Kashmir, but we need to bridge this trust deficit. We need to get rid of this trust deficit, and we should create those channels through which people can interact, the central government as well as people of Jammu and Kashmir, and politicians of Jammu and Kashmir should interact with politicians of central government and other parties. We don't want to see the situation what happened in Afghanistan. Taliban took over or is in a very strong position, and we don't want this whole episode to get. We don't want these people who are trying to bifurcate Jammu and Kashmir from India. We don't want them to exploit this situation. We don't want that they give this example of Taliban, that if Taliban can win against this mighty America, then we can do the same thing with India. We don't want to see this sort of violence and this sort of situation. So it is important that we engage the central government and all various different political parties of Jammu and Kashmir. They should engage. Engagement is a starting point. If they can discuss things, then there is every chance that we can solve this problem. Moving on to next item, needless appeal. This one is about Uttar Pradesh government's decision to, you might be aware about this thing, that hoardings were placed in various different cities of Uttar Pradesh, and these hoardings displayed a name and address of all those people. I won't say all, but a few of them who took part in violence, who were protesting against CAA. Now, Uttar Pradesh government's decision was rejected by Allahabad High Court, and Uttar Pradesh government has appealed against this Allahabad High Court's decision. The High Court said that erection of hoardings lacked statutory backing, and it was a gross violation of citizens' privacy. Now, privacy, right? We are going to talk about this thing as we move ahead. Now, let me tell you that Uttar Pradesh government has approved an ordinance that provides for recovery of compensation from those suspected of involvement in rioting for any damage to property. And this is something that I personally agree with. I think to protest is your right in a democratic country, and in our country as well, to protest is our right. But we cannot destroy someone else's property. We cannot destroy public property. This is something that is very important. You won't believe, just 3-4 days of this sort of violence and this sort of chakka jam will destroy 100 crores worth of property, public property. And this is nowadays, this has become a fashion in our country. Like, if they are not happy with something, then people will come out and they will destroy public property. So this is not acceptable. If we can genuinely collect money from those people who have destroyed, if we can identify them, and if we can auction their property and collect money, or if they cannot pay, for example, then they should engage in community services and restoration and cleaning. If we can do this thing, then this will create an environment where people will think twice before destroying someone else's property. So this whole matter, this Uttar Pradesh government challenging Allahabad High Court's decision on this thing is in Supreme Court's. Supreme Court is going to look after it now. A bigger bench hopefully will look after it. And this Allahabad High Court has talked about this privacy case Puthuswamy verdict. It as per Allahabad High Court, that if you name and shame people like this way, then this is violation of their privacy. But I was thinking about this thing, that a person who is, let's say, stone pelting, right, during this riot, he or she knows it very well that there are CCTV cameras, there are drones that are flying, then there are people who are in various, from behind their windows, they would be using or recording this whole thing. So when you are out there, when you are doing this sort of indulging in violence, then you are indirectly, this thing, that you will get, your face. You are going to, I'm not say famous, I would say infamous, right? You are going to, a camera will capture you basically. And normally people, they don't travel 50-60 kilometers for protesting. You will be doing protesting or, destroying things somewhere nearby your area so that you can go back to your home quickly. So local people, and most of the faces are quite familiar as well. So naming and shaming, if you do this sort of things, then I don't think there is anything wrong in naming and shaming this sort of people. But of course, if someone is genuinely, protesting, beg your pardon for that word. If someone is genuinely protesting using democratic way of protest, then there is then government cannot name and shame those people, right? You cannot put them in bad light. Moving on to next item, a dam of contention in Africa. This one is about Africa. You are not going to find a question on Africa. Yes, there are a few things that we can talk about here. Like, say, for example, the whole issue is going on. It's about this biggest hydropower project that Ethiopia wants to create, and the name is Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD. Now, there is a dispute between this water sharing between Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan, and they were supposed to have a meeting in Washington, but Ethiopia skipped the latest meeting. So, the reason why Egypt is not happy with this dam of Ethiopia is because Egypt is saying that we will get less water after your dam. So you should create this dam later on, or you should, increase this water reservoir in 10 years, in 15 years time, rather than all of the doing it all of a sudden. So it's also about climate change, because of this climate change and the way urbanization is going on and things. So this is creating water stress in various different pockets of our world. So this is one point. But this thing, yes, you can look at this issue from this point of view. But the most important thing that I find is that in your prelims examination, you can find a question based on the geography of this region. And because Nile River is a sort of at present international topic, so you can easily find one question. So I have one question for you, and this question will require you guys to spend, let's say, 30 minutes, maybe max 30 minutes, right? It won't be more than that. 30 minutes after this topic, that basically the question is that give me the name of those countries through which this Nile passes, right? So it starts somewhere here and it ends here. So the mouth of Egypt is mouth of this Nile River is in Egypt, in this Mediterranean Sea. So give me the name of all the countries through which you find this river passing, and make sure you start from the south, and then you give me the name till Egypt is going to be the last one, of course. But do open your atlas, do a little bit of research on this topic. See the landlocked countries here, countries that are sharing borders with each other. So you should look at this whole region from this point of view. If equator is passing through it or not, if Tropic of Cancer is passing through it or not, all these things you should observe, right? You can find various different questions based on it. You can find a question like, which are the two lines that pass through Nile, Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Equator, and things. Remember, this is a very important topic. I think you will find one question in your prelims examination. That's what I think, because I'm judging it from past experiences where a question on this West Asia was asked, right? Give the landlocked countries, and you will find options like Israel, Jordan, and all these countries were in option, and you have to give name of that landlocked country. So if you have observed an area in this way, then you can give this sort of answers. You won't find a specific book for this sort of questions. So that's everything in today's discussion, dear friends. Thank you very much. I'll see you with daily financial news analysis. Enjoy your studies. God bless you all. Jai Hind.